So Kevin O'Connor had a report saying the Celtics are up to something on the trade market. I don't want to spend that long on the financial stuff. Basically, they've got the big trade exception, which is currently worth about $21 million because they're hard capped. If they include some of their own money in a deal, then that opens up more of the trade exception. They have about $16 million in room until they hit the luxury tax at the moment, so that's another reason to include some of their contracts. And then, of course, they have draft picks, so yeah, that's the ammo for the trade. And if they were determined enough, they could move enough of their guys to where they could open up the full $28.5 million trade exception. I did a JJ Redick video not long ago. There's a chance he's the guy. I think Celtics fans want Vooch from the Magic. I don't think they're going to trade him. And as far as this center who could slow down Bam, Embiid, and Giannis, because that's talked about enough with the Celtics at this point, I'm just not really sure that guy exists. Celtics fans want Harrison Barnes. He makes $22 million at the moment. Danny Ainge already said that he wants to get like a guy with shooting and size and just a strong all-around player. I think Harrison Barnes would be great on the Celtics. As of right now, I don't think the Kings want to move Barnes. But if we fast forward a few weeks to the trade deadline and the Kings aren't doing too well and the Celtics are offering at least one first-round pick for Harrison Barnes, then maybe Sacramento would consider that one. Anyway, another name who I notice is Evan Fournier, who I think would be a pretty alright fit with the Celtics. And he is a free agent, which is a little scary since everybody leaves the Celtics when they become a free agent. But, you know, he's not a super high-profile guy, so I think there's a chance they could re-sign him. Similar things with Barnes, you know, the exception, maybe a first-round pick for him as well. Probably can re-sign him for not too much money. Aaron Gordon, maybe. Is this finally the year the Magic would trade Aaron Gordon? The Magic have just, they're just sitting in this thing where they could be major players on the trade market if they decide to just start moving dudes, but we don't know if they're going to want to do that. The Oladipo thing is kind of interesting. I feel like the Celtics would have to either move Kemba or Smart just for financial reasons if you look at the next couple years. And even then, they'd probably have to offload more picks than they're comfortable with. And again, I'm just programmed to believe any significant player who's a free agent is just going to leave the Celtics, so I don't want that one. I think Lamarcus Aldridge's situation is a little interesting in San Antonio. I don't think the Celtics would want to give up much for Aldridge, given it seems like he's declining here, and the Spurs would probably want a little too much for the guy. Also, don't the Spurs just not make trades during the season? Do we think there's a chance the Celtics would try to get Kelly Oubre? I mean, he hasn't been too good outside of his 40-point explosion against the Mavs. But he fits into the exception, and on his best day, which does not pop up that often, but on his best day, he is a 3-and-D guy with good athleticism. Another wing, Otto Porter, he's at least a possibility. I mean, he's been hurt, and even when he's healthy, he's been a little disappointing, but it's a possibility. I mean, the Celtics would have to move enough small contracts to be able to use the full $28.5 million exception, but there's that at least. I also imagine the Celtics would hope to re-sign Porter for much less than he's currently being paid. I doubt they would want to use a first-round pick on him. Maybe the Bulls would want that. That's another thing, too. Like, what are teams going to view their guys as? I mean, there's a chance that if the Celtics would want Harrison Barnes, the Kings might want 2 firsts for him, and I doubt Danny Ainge is going to want to do that. I think if the Raptors' season goes south, with which they've climbed back a little bit, but Norman Powell, making about $10 million this year. He does have a player option next year, so that is something you have to account for, though. Anyway, I just want to talk about the Celtics in general, I guess. So, the big thing right now is Kemba, right? This last game against Phoenix, if Kemba has even a slightly bad game, they probably win, but instead he had a terrible game, so they lost. And some of it with him is just missing shots. Some of it is he suddenly looks really, really small when he's driving to the basket. Like he's just getting enveloped by players, I guess. And unfortunately now they're without Jalen and Smart. I mean, I do think this team, assuming Kemba's still good at basketball, he was very good against the Clippers, of course, and it's him, Tatum, Smart, Jalen, and they figure out whether this Tice Thompson thing is actually going to work, or if they're just going to play them independent of one another, then I think they can still be very good. I think they've held the line okay enough. I mean, they're borderline top 10 in offense and defensive rating. And with their last 4 losses, all of them were close, including that 1-point game against the Lakers. So I feel like while I'm sure you can probably find some hard reactions to this team, if you look on the Celtics internet enough, like Celtics Twitter, Celtics Reddit, I think they're pretty good. I just think they need to be healthy, probably get one more guy, yeah, and just hope the second unit doesn't kill you in some of these games. And even then, you'd hope staggering Tatum and Jalen and Kemba can fix a lot of those things. It's just lately they just haven't had the guys to be able to do that. Besides that, I still want Tatum to shoot more free throws. His shooting has been nuts this year. It seems like he makes every single sidestep 3 that he attempts. But he's still at 3.9 free throws a game. Simply not enough. And I think last night against Phoenix, you especially saw it. He had 4 free throw attempts. And I really don't mind the threes at all. It's more so just his evasiveness around the rim. It seemed like in the playoffs, he turned a corner in terms of realizing that dudes just can't deal with him when he's around the basket. He's too big, he's too long, he's too athletic and all that. Like, he can draw a lot of contact. And he's kind of going back to the finesse floater scoop shot guy, which, I mean, he's still been very good. I put him in the All-Star game and I didn't really think twice about it, but there's just another level that he can get to, and especially without Smart and Jalen out there and with Kemba struggling, you would need Tatum to do that. And maybe that's putting too much on his shoulders, but at the same time, they just gave him a max extension. Like, this is the expectation. So we'll see. Again, you get the guys back, you make a move for somebody who's all right. I think they could be looking good going into the postseason. So we'll see what they want to do. And I feel like a move is probably going to happen at the deadline. Although, as I mentioned this, I think every time I talk about this trade exception, there is a possibility that they will just wait until the offseason and then they can use it for some ammo in a sign-and trade. And this is probably too early to speculate on these sorts of things, but we're already this deep into the video, who cares? If I looked at future free agents, sign-and-trade guys, if the Celtics were going to go this route, I think Tim Hardaway Jr. would be interesting. There's reason to think Dallas would just want to hold on to him, but I think he could be a cool fit with the Celtics if they believed that they were the team for Josh Richardson if he declined his player option. Although I guess they could just move for him this year, to be honest. I don't know if the Mavs are going to view him as essential, given how his year is going. Could they steal Duncan Robinson from Miami? I mean, it would require Robinson agreeing to leave the Heat first, which, I mean, he probably doesn't want to do. Besides that, I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see what they do.